Chapter 14. No shite without arses. I didn't get the full impact at first. I looked at the notice board and read, "The new manager of the Eagle, replacing Mr. A. Butterthwaite from September 4th, will be Mr. J. Devlin. Mr. Devlin's wide experience of the hotel trade and his earlier stay with us will no doubt be of great benefit to the hotel." It was signed by the Bottles down in Chester, and as I read it, I kind of heard a little bell ringing in my head, but the chimes weren't big enough to wake me to the full truth. When I got to my desk to get my things ready for the night, keys, mail, room availability and all that, this voice says, "Long time no see, Ted. A long time and certainly no see, I can vouch for that." And there, with a smile to rival a bloody porpoise's, was Mr. Devlin. Mr. D, the man I thought we'd seen the last of, the scourge of Claudia and the poison of my life before Mr. Butter arrived. I had assumed that the shame of being caught trying to shaft one of the cleaners would have been enough to ensure his complete disappearance from the place. I mean, I set him up with what I thought that at the time was a masterful scam. I'll never forget us opening the door and catching him with his kecks round his ankles like he was in some Italian film, a dirty one, but one where they don't quite cut to the dirty bits. When we'd been waiting outside the door listening to Claudia saying, "Oh, you cheeky devil, John," referring to our very own harasser general of the Eagle, I thought we'd well and truly got to the bugger. It was the signal for the interruption, and there he was, in flagrante delicto. Could have even had something poking out from his underpants, but that quickly disappeared with the shock arrival of the cops. Now, anyone who can stick around after that deserves a medal, and I took it that here was a man who would not be able to stay, but I was wrong. He hadn't done a bunk after all. It was just a convenient move for him, the disappearance, some kind of training program or whatever. We thought we'd gotten him well and truly stitched up. Claudia and Nancy, the Temptation, and Jeff and Dr. Harrison playing policemen. It should have worked. But the whole scheme had simply coincided with Mr. D's departure for fresh pastures, or should I say manures. Anyway, it had been fun for me, what with all the arrangements and the planning and getting the costumes and the takeaways when we'd done it, and pretending to be none the wiser. It was the first time I'd done anything, really. But there was one bonus. We got rid of old Harry and his constant nosing around and snitching to the bosses and spewing out his usual disgusting things about women, blacks, Catholics, young people and queers. The question I was asking myself was whether Mr. D had put two and two together about that incident, or if he had just forgotten it. Did he have the kind of mind to put it all together? Suspicious he was, but suspicious enough? And did he have anything to do with old Harry? Because the two of them were always close as bank robbers, and twice as bleeding sneaky. I can remember Mr. D, with his stupid posh talk, thinking I was some kind of fool, not knowing my background, what with the O-levels from tech, and my interests in history and the ways of the world, though more often as an outsider. And now here he was, greeting me like we were veterans from a Japanese POW camp, as if we'd just bumped into each other in town, and he expected me to be dead from starvation or savagery. "Thought you were dead," he might have whispered. But of course, we weren't. We weren't anything like that. Well. It's Ted, eh? Still here. Part of the furniture now. Like one of the fixtures. Becoming something of an old retainer, yes? I suppose you could... Oh, don't worry, Ted. I'm not here to eat your head off, Sonny. I haven't been away all this time without learning something, old friend. Not me. When you get through the kind of program of and professional development that I've been through. No way. No way. NVQs? I've had dozens for bleeding breakfast, lad. Management skills. Give me an action plan by 10 a.m. and I'll have it thorough-putted by lunchtime prompt. Well, one thing you could say about him is that he hadn't lost his way of talking. Kind of posh with common bits sticking out, like a woman in her underskirt. Well, one thing you could say about him is that he hadn't lost his way of talking. Kind of posh with common bits sticking out, like a woman with her underskirt showing, and a dirty one as well. What I imagine Mussolini must have been like. Oh no, I've picked up a few ideas, and there'll be changes. Oh yes. The fact is, and I hope you can follow me on this because there's money in it for us all, you know. The fact is, the old chap Alan Butter, whatever his name was, virtually ruined this place. Oh yes. And who are you trying to kid? I was asking myself about this grade A piece of something nasty in the woodshed. You mean Mr. Butterthwaite? I said. I took a certain amount of pleasure in correcting Mr. D over this, since I was the most guilty of the lot in mispronouncing the poor unfortunate man's name. That's right, sorry, that's his name. Explains it all. Anyway, as I was saying, ruins it, the stupid so-and-so. No development, no planning. From what I hear, just fancy forms to fill in every minute of the day. That's not management. I mean, where's the vision? If there's one thing a rigorous course of NVQs will give you, it's that. It's vision. Vision is the word, and vision is the thing. The vision thing. That's what I'm looking at now. You see, the thing nowadays is to try and get the conference lot and the minority groups. That's the way forward. We've got to build into these areas. We've got potential growth there. With a bit of luck, I'll be developing that area. And of course, with my training and qualifications, there should be no problem. What do you mean by minority groups, Mr. Devlin? I said, playing what's called the devil's avocado, if you get the joke. I mean, I was trying to stir it up. Well, best way to think of this sort of thing, Ted, is to look around you. Rule of thumb is, if they're a different colour or their eyes are slanty, they're a minority. If they're in a wheelchair or got a guide dog, bingo. Money should come flooding in. I'm telling you, lad, money follows misery in this day and age. You learn yourself that, and you're on your way. Mind you, I didn't expect you to be fully up to scratch on this one. You mean to say we're going to try and get some more... Listen, Ted. Listen and you might learn something for your benefit here. If my memory serves, you was never one for the more demanding aspects of the hotel trade, were you? Anything requiring the old cylinder block and you're lost, correct? The point I'm trying to make is that there's a bleeding boom in the specialist trade now. All kinds of bloody cowboy organisations setting themselves up to offer conference facilities. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Which isn't to say that we're cowboy operation, no fear of that. Problem is building up the contacts. Didn't you, now correct me if I'm getting off beam here, right? Okay, if you don't have links with the black community, and he does that thing with his fingers, sticking them up in the air like a pair of rabbit's ears, meaning in quotes when he said the word black. Cheeky bastard. Sorry, Mr. D, I said, although I think I already knew what he was getting at. Come on, lads. Don't play the paddy off the potato chip trick with me. You know what I mean. Bloody Claudia and, what's his name, Bob Marley, the boyfriend. Mind you, I only saw him the once. Rasta, whatever you call him. In with the air. Oh, Leroy, I said. Oh, Leroy, yes. Yes, it is Leroy. Could you perhaps get in touch with him? A Rastamatulian conference would be a real feather in my cap. Farian, Mr. D. Rastafarian, I said. But I didn't feel too good correcting him. I knew he'd have a go. Oh, yes. And since when have you been a spokesperson for the Liverpool black community? Since when does a night porter with a degree in bullshit become the spokesperson for a deprived ethnic minority then? Well, yes, well, you might say indeed. God, I don't know. The best of the lot here I remember was what's his name? Old Bertie, was it? Harry, I said. Harry, that's the chap. Ever see anything of him? Well, and all this Mr. D bit will have to go as well, of course. Where on earth? I don't know, the non-salaried staff always amaze me with their nicknames and their superstitions and their... Well, no better word comes to mind. Ignorance. Their ignorance. Mr. Devlin was wearing a double-breasted grey dark suit with pinstripes. On his right lapel he had a little disc that I only noticed after a few minutes, but it gave me a bit of a shock when I read, J. Devlin, Manager, Eagle Hotel. We love our customers. Have a nice day. He had on a white shirt with pale green stripes and a flashy green tie. What I couldn't believe was that he was wearing a pair of bloody braces with the great big leather bits for buttoning up on the trousers. Also, and I don't remember him having especially bad eyes, but now he was constantly fingering a huge dark green pair of glasses. And his hair. He had the kind of greasy, slick back haircut you usually see on telly. What's used to be called a duck's arse style. Reserved, I always thought, for the under 25s and over 60s. But here was our Mr. D, 38 if he ever was a bloody day, with the evidence on it, in the little wrinkles causing his fat face. What I couldn't believe was that he was wearing a pair of bloody braces with great big leather bits for buttoning onto the trousers. Also, and I don't remember him as having especially bad eyes, but now he was constantly fingering a huge dark green pair of glasses. And his hair. He had the kind of greasy slick back haircut you usually see on telly. What used to be called the duck's arse style. Reserved, I always thought, for the under 25s and over 60s. But here was our Mr. D, 38 if he was ever a bloody day, with the evidence of it in the little wrinkles creasing his fat face and his grey hair. Just plain ignorance is the thing that stops this country, and the hotel trade, I might add. So the first group we've got in is Newcastle Green Gays. Killing two birds with one stone there, I can tell you. And if you could throw in a bit of aid stuff, you're talking three birds. Could be a very definite first for the hotel trade this side of the Mersey. This side of the Mersey. Makes my bloody heart jump, that does. We could get the regional performance medal with that one. I'm telling you. Oh, and another thing that reminds me. We'll have to do something about the casual trade here. Rather too iffy in this day and age. Iffy, I asked myself. Iffy. What kind of word was that? Oh, and by the way, there'll be bonuses. Select staff. Bonuses for performance. In other words, performance-related pay. How about that? And you can tell the domestics that as well. Does Claudia still what, Mr. Devlin? Still work here? No, she doesn't work here anymore. She got a job somewhere else. Oh, well, there'll always be a place for her here. Can always find time for an attractive and intelligent coloured girl. Sorry, black woman. And he did the same, in quotes, fingers sticking up like rabbits' bloody ears. Second question he asked about Claudia, and I knew what he was up to. I could follow every sneaky little idea, every filthy little thought. You can't clean a dirty mind, I suppose. No such thing as mental disinfectant. He was like he always was. Mr. Devlin, the devil in a pinstripe with his hand up the cleaner's skirt. I had to face it. His present reincarnation was no better than the first so far. He managed to get going with a vengeance. So it's every day cleaning up and putting posters on the walls about safe sex and well-man clinics and all that kind of stuff. Asked me to make sure the hotel condom machine was in full working order, with those special tough ones for this particular minority group. Also, and this seems a bit odd really, a series of pictures that he got from Chester Zoo showing animals in their environmentally safe cages, and more pictures of whales' fins sticking out of the sea as they dive under, and crocodiles with their noses sticking up out of the water. He'd gotten that one from some library book and then had it copied in Johnson the Cleaners on one of those big colour copiers. This is for the Newcastle Green Gaze thing, which is looking like more of a mixture of David Attenborough and that Julian Clary bloke, rather than a hotel conference. Excuse me. You there, yes, you in the outfit. Oh, fuck. Excuse me. You there, yes, you in the outfit. I knew it was me this bloke was calling over. I was wearing an outfit. A grey uniform. One of Mr. D's new schemes. And this was the inaugural conference of the Newcastle Green Gaze. And because I'm an employee, I'm supposed to have a flexible arrangement. No. And because I'm an employee, I'm supposed to have a flexible attitude to working arrangements, which means I now do bloody well everything. So I was giving a hand at the evening buffet. So what's this then? A fella with a moustache said to me, pointing at a bowl. They looked like potatoes and probably smelt like them too. So I must have been giving this bloke a puzzled look because of the stupid question. New potatoes. Yeah, new potatoes is what I think they are. Would that be just a touch cheeky squeak? Would it? Not the fucking potatoes, silly. The green stuff. What's the green stuff? Well, I didn't know, which was a bit embarrassing, given my attitude to the new potato question. So there I was, looking around the place for Mr. D, who seemed to be having the time of his life with a group of blokes in suits over by the bar. When I asked him, he said the green stuff was mint, and did I have to interrupt? Couldn't I see he was talking business? I wandered back to the man by the potatoes and told him. He was looking disappointed, I can tell you. I mean, he could have seen his lips under his moustache. I bet he was slavering like a dog with a bone. Definitely mint? He asked. I nodded. Then this other bloke who was piling potatoes onto his plate turned to the first one and said, is there some problem with mint? Does mint give you a problem? I mean, mint. Well, said the first one. It's just that my aromatherapist has said that mint is, well... Oh yeah, aromatherapists. But haven't you heard? Said the second bloke, with a knowing smile on his face. Mint's okay. I had that problem. You get dizzy and all that, right? Funny shapes going across your eyeballs, eh? Anyway, my homeopath just gave me the go-ahead. You have mint on your potatoes, Paul, whenever you want. And I've had no trouble since. See, I put it down to all that stress, not mint. Oh, really? Said the first bloke, who started shoveling spuds onto his plate like he'd never eaten them before in his life. The rest of the night was a bloody boring one, with a couple of lectures and a sideshow entitled The Gay Response to the Plight of the Whale, How Norwegian Gay Community Had an Impact. The only excitement I felt was when Jeff Smith turned up. Later on, I felt terrible because I had to knock him back. As he wasn't one of the invited guests and wasn't on the speaker list, he would be a gatecrasher, and that would have meant trouble for me, given Mr. D's interest in my career. I mean, I told him, if It wasn't my fault that suddenly the place was full with the very concerned homosexuals from Newcastle. Listen, pal, you and me go back a bit, alright? We've got nothing to worry about here. These fellas are my brothers. Understand? I got nothing to worry about here. Okay. I got in a KP for my usual room and that. But I'll find someone in there. No rush, like. How's Devlin turning out then? Bad or worse? Pain or trouble? Give us the gen then, Ted. Drop the good news on me, man. I think he's exactly the same. Only thing that's different is his haircut and glasses. Now he wears glasses, believe it or not. So we've got another problem on our hands then, haven't we? Another job for the task force. Could get the pills out again. Mind you, I'd have to get in touch with that Cockney brother of mine. He's in charge of that department. Devlin wants me to invite Leroy to see him about some new conference he's organising for social workers or something. Something about multicultural society and all that. Reads the Guardian now, does he? Seemed to remember the only interest he had in blacks was getting his cock into one. Pestered the life out of Claudia. Offered money as well, like, I said. Tell you another thing. I reckon he's just using this conference lark as a chance to get near Claudia again. He even kind of offered her a job back. Cheeky. I don't know. This new enterprise economy business throws up some friggin' monsters, doesn't it? Anyway, I think I'll be off to my lecture. Now, what do I know about the effects of nuclear power stations on the gay community? See you, kid. Thing about Jeff is that nothing seems to bother him too much. Of course, he was right in what he said. About 6 in the morning, I'm just getting ready to start thinking about going home, and who should wander down the stairs but Jeff? Met an old pal, didn't I? He said, winking at me. So, the big man down the Eagle want to come and give me a lecture. A serious thing this, you know. What kind of rascality the bastard have up him sleeve now, you know? I just told Leroy about Devlin's plans to host some kind of conference about black people, and that was his first response. But listen, I said, I got to give you this to read. And I handed him the publicity that Mr. Devlin had given me. What was amazing about it was how well produced it was, coming from a poxy organisation like the Eagle. Obviously, Mr. D had been working on the stuff while he was away, and also, I suppose, during the period of Mr. Butter's tragic illness. But what is this, man? Just tell me this, new man. What is this? Listen, Ted Ward, brother, listen to this. Race, class, and the inner city. The second inaugural in a series of conferences for the Times. Brought to you by the Eagle Conferences. Copyright Eagle Conferences. And what is all this, man? This is it, I said. This is the new regime. The first one of these things brought to you by Eagle Conferences was Newcastle Green Gays last week, I said. And Mr. D's only been back in the Eagle for about a bloody month. Then I told him the story of the mint and the potatoes. Leroy said his Rastafarian sympathies went out to anyone who wanted to use Ital food in his stuff. I didn't pursue the point, but I did add that Mr. Devlin had asked me to get in touch with Leroy, to ask him to the conference as a speaker. I said that Mr. Devlin had quoted something like 50 quid for his fee and expenses. Lee said his flabber gone gassed. And then I added that he wanted Claudia to come as well, to take part. That's when it clicked. Shh, the cheeky rascal. I want to touch off with my fucking hell. Shh, that cheeky rascal. You want to touch off on my woman, no? Eh? I said. I had to tell him. Listen, I said. I don't understand when you talk religious, when you talk with your Rastafarian. Ah, that's no problem, man. So, the dirty bastard fancies Claudia still, does he? Well, of course, Leroy was there the night we thought we'd sorted out Mr. Devlin, so he was fully aware of the depths he could sink to. What's that story, Brother Tedward, about some people in the past? They want to sort out their enemies, and they just can't get into their town to do them over. Then one of them has the bright idea about a wooden horse. Come on, you're the expert. I know that one, I said. That's the story of the Trojan horse. They built this bloody great wooden horse, and the Trojans were puzzled by it. But they got tricked into taking the horse into the city. Then, during the night, the Greeks got out of it and slaughtered about 80% of the male population, and probably raped a good portion of the women. Should be called the Argonian or Spartan horse, really, if you think about it, or something else. They weren't called Greeks back in them days. That's it, though. You just changed the murder and the rape business, and there you have me. I'm going to be kinda living Trojan horse thing, and sort that bastard blood clot out, once and for all. What do you want me to do? I asked. What you think? Tell the dirty bumbleclot that I want to talk at his friggin' conference, and Claudia too. Might as well get a century of pounds. Can't throw away good money. When I got into work that night, I found a letter waiting for me on my desk. It had no stamp on it. Kelly said some dirty old codger brought it in and refused to answer any questions. Said that he was wearing some fancy kind of disguise, some kind of military uniform, and false moustache and beard. Vaguely familiar, she said. No need to think too hard, I thought. Old Harry. Now he started to come back to the hotel. God preserve us. The letter said, Well, you gone and done it now. Letting coloureds have their way. You can expect to lose your lives, all of yous. And your friends as well. Remember, no shite without arses.